questions, comments, concerns, anything like that in the chat box. I'll be watching that. If we do have opportunities to ask questions during the presentation, we definitely will, but we'll probably just save most of them for the end just to make sure that we get through all of this goodness on time. We want to be respectful of everyone's time and energy. So with all that being said, I will hand the reins over to Coach Sara. Thank you so much, Sara.
Yeah, thank you, Jill, and thank you everyone for joining me today for our webinar. And hopefully you're here to learn more about tackling your procrastination to help manage stress. Just like Jill, this is a topic that's very near and dear to my heart and is something that is, if not one of the most, I mean, it's definitely like top 3 in terms of topics that I coach on with my clients. So I'm really excited to share some of those nuggets with you today and see what we can do to shift things forward for you all. So with that, I'm going to go to my next slide here. I'd love to take a quick poll for everyone here. And we're going to start using the chat box a lot to have engagement in today's session. So one of the great things about coaching is how much we learn through self-reflection, through processing, both verbally and written. And so same way, your interaction today is going to be really helpful. So we've got a lot of people here in attendance today. How many of you are either an Amala Vita client or you've heard of us before, you've attended another webinar? Type a yes in that chat box if so, and type a no if this is your first Amala Vita experience. We'll start warming up with that chat box. Okay, awesome. So we've got some solid variety here between the ALV alums and the newbies. So with that, welcome to you all. Amala Vita is all about loving your life, like our name implies, and that's in any aspect, whether that be career, leadership, life, health. We believe that everyone should be able to love their life holistically. And part of that comes from being able to manage procrastination, manage that stress, to be able to focus on all of the things that you want to do and be in life. So you've come to the right place for today's conversation. All right. Boop. And for those of you who don't know me, I am Coach Sara. And I have been with the Amala Vita team for over 3 years now as a leadership and life coach, really focused on all aspects where procrastination can absolutely take part. For myself, I am also familiar with procrastination. We all have our own flavors of it. We're going to discover that shortly. But for me, I always like to share with my clients, beyond my coaching and professional background, the fact that I am super passionate about martial arts. And so that was an area that I was procrastinating on achieving my black belt. I was a student for several years as a teenager, and then life happened, all of that. So did not move forward past the rank right before black belt. It was always on my bucket list. And if I'm being honest, for so many reasons, it was something that I wanted, but I procrastinated on getting to that next level for almost 20 years. And for something that was so important to me, being able to break it down, identify strategies to move forward, actually having a coach who helped nudge me in that direction to take that one first step of signing up for a class is what got me to where I am today. Now I'm an assistant instructor at my school. I'm a 2nd degree black belt and just can't imagine life without having that be part of my journey. So I'm excited today to explore for you all areas that if you were to move beyond the procrastination and take more steps forward, I'm excited to see what that can bring to you in the same way that it's brought so much to me. And so for the remainder of our content, I'm going to go ahead and adjust my settings so that way I can focus in on you all. So bear with me while I adjust my settings here. And okay. So we will be covering a multitude of areas today. Obviously you're here, so you know that procrastination matters, but we're going to talk about why it matters even more, some of those strategies to drive us to action, and how habits fit into that process. And just like with coaching, we're all about defining next steps, actions, commitments to move forward, since learning is great, but it's also so much about the implementation. So we're going to leverage the power of this group in order to start taking those next steps there. All right, so why procrastination matters. As you all are probably familiar with, it really stops us from being that type of person that we want to be and from doing the things that we want to do. And really where we're all different is that we have our own different reasons for procrastinating, our different fears that are underneath that. And so knowing why is what really helps us to be able to adjust and to ultimately get the results that we want. So with that, if you've attended any of my other webinars, I often start with the same statistic with a little bit of a different flavor to it. So with that, from a Gallup poll, there's a stat that shows that Americans, and I think this is not surprising to everyone, especially with all that's going on today, that we are among the most stressed out people in the world. And so stress, procrastination is one of those things that can contribute to that. And one of the ways that Gallup determines our level of stress is by asking a simple question of, were you stressed out a lot of the day yesterday? So let's go ahead and get that chat box going here as well. If you were to answer that question, were you stressed out a lot of the day yesterday? Yes or no in the chat. Let's just get a pulse of where we are all feeling. And looks like, again, we're pretty split. A lot of yeses, a lot of nos, but actually from what I'm seeing, probably gearing a little bit more towards those yeses. So this chart, by the way, it's already outdated. Here we are, 2021, but stress was the highest level in over a decade. This was pre-COVID time, so I bet it would be even off the charts there. And so really, procrastination is one of those things that contributes to our stress. That's why we're going to also explore it more today. I do not know where the UK fits in terms of the countries that are stressed out. That's a great question, Joanna. But I do know that with this poll annually, that it does shift year to year, and that some of those other factors are based on things, whether it be economic situation, social dynamics, health, as in terms of not only mental health, but physical health, other sorts of kind of world events, all sort of contribute to that stress. And so with so many things outside of our control, we're absolutely going to focus today on some of those elements within our control, so that way we can take action. All right, so I'd love to hear from you all now about the ways that you uniquely procrastinate. So procrastination, by definition, I would say that most commonly it's this idea of putting off activities that were planned or scheduled for activities that are of lesser importance. So for my health coaching clients, there might be a lot of procrastination around working out, lifting some of those weights. There might be procrastination related to that pizza box and the soda. Maybe it's procrastination around moving forward with a way of eating that aligns with your sort of lifestyle. So what are the ways that, or one example, I think we all have lots of ways that we procrastinate, but I'd love to just take a poll here of how you all procrastinate. Maybe there's a particular situation. Is it something in work? Is it something related to your health, like the examples I just described? Or is it something related to, like for me, it was procrastinating on taking that step of signing up for a Taekwondo school and just thinking about it off and on for over 20 years. All right. So I'll read a couple of these as they go through for those of you who might not see the chat box, but writing lists, a lot of time planning, but not actually doing. Also some procrastination around basic household chores. And for some people, that might be the area that you procrastinate on. I would say I myself am one of those people. You might be one of the other people who actually procrastinates on other things and you fill your time with the chores. So there are those different flavors of procrastination. We're going to talk about some of those types a little bit further in our presentation. Ooh, self-care, more planning, uncertainty about where to start. Those are all absolutely solid procrastination examples. So procrastination, again, fits into this bigger stress picture because it's important, it's big. I've seen so many stats out there around procrastination, and I'd say nowadays that 20% of people that are chronically affected by it, that's probably a bit on the lower side. I've seen other stats that actually it's more than 20%. It might even be, 25, 30 plus percent of the population. So, for those of you who feel like procrastination has a chronic impact for you, then absolutely, it's all about identifying next steps and strategies that work for you because it's painful, because it creates that stress. And so while so many factors that are outside of our control can influence how much we procrastinate, there are the areas inside of our control. So just like with coaching, any topic, we're always going to explore what you can control to move forward. We're going to continue to do that through today's presentation. Okay, so here we go. Why we procrastinate. There are different ways to explain why we procrastinate. One of the ways that I like, because I am a data-oriented person, I come from an advertising sort of analytics background. So I like that there's a formula here, but I only like numbers, by the way, though, if it tells a story. And I think this does a nice job. So curious in the chat box, yes or no, has anyone heard of the procrastination equation before? This is something by Dr. Piers Steele. He's a top researcher on motivation and procrastination. And so this equation comes from his book called The Procrastination Equation. Okay, great. I love when there are new elements that I can share. So with that, this equation is based on the idea that procrastination is influenced by our motivation in any given moment. And I see some of my clients that are on this participant list. So if you've worked with me before or attended another webinar, you'll often hear me talk about achieving our goals through coaching in terms of 3 focus areas: our mindset, our methods that we're using, and our level of motivation. We need to tap into all 3 of those to move forward. And so with procrastination, it focuses on motivation, that our level of motivation in any given moment is going to be influenced by these 4 variables, which determines whether or not we procrastinate on the thing. So this formula, this motivation, it drives our decisioning. So we think back to that other picture, that decision of, should I go to the gym and work out right now? Or am I going to stay home and eat pizza and watch Netflix? We're going to procrastinate on these tasks when we aren't as motivated around them. So let's go ahead and explore each of these variables now. So expectancy first. It's the idea of whether or not you truly believe that you can succeed with whatever that next step may be. So this is where that mindset comes into play. So are you confident in your ability to achieve a great outcome with the action that you are considering. The expectancy is high. If there's more of that belief in yourself, more of that mindset, it's going to increase that motivation. So with expectancy and value, we want these two variables to be as high as possible to offset the other two, the impulsiveness and delay. So let's talk value now. With the next step that you are going to take, or considering taking, I should say, the value is how important it is to you. Do you care about this specific task? If it's rewarding to you, you're going to be more motivated. So now we've covered the numerator, and let's talk about the denominator. So again, if that denominator wins out, then you're going to procrastinate. You're going to be less motivated in a particular area. So the factors that influence that, first off, impulsiveness. So this is essentially your sensitivity to delay. If you are more impulsive, if you're an instant gratification person like me, then this is going to absolutely impact your procrastination, your level of motivation, because it means then that you're going to be more likely to value shorter term immediate rewards, like the pizza, for example, versus the longer term when you start to see those gains from lifting those weights on a consistent basis. And then there's the delay. So with any sort of task that you are considering or a next step, the delay is how long you're going to have to wait to receive that expected reward, that benefit, that payout. So again, something like working towards health and going to the gym, it'd be awesome if there was a workout routine where you lifted a barbell once and all of a sudden you had these huge biceps. I have yet to figure that out. When I find that out, you will be the first to know. But with that, that's a perfect example then of a longer delay that can impact our motivation. So again, knowing these variables is helpful because you can be really intentional. Just like with coaching, we create intentionality with our focus, with our next steps around ways that you can boost the value. Really think about boosting your mindset, that expectation, to build your motivation. Because procrastination really, it's a battle of our impulses versus our willpower. So we're going to rationally explore the different procrastination types, build that understanding. And then we're also going to wrap by talking about several strategies that make that willpower side easier. If we can environmentally shift some of the things around us to just make that decisioning easier for us, then why not explore that? So we'll touch upon all of those things. So let's now explore procrastination types. And I'd love for you all, as you hear me walking through these areas, to go ahead and type in the chat box at any time here, what sort of procrastination type or types best describes you, because you could fit into multiple of these areas. You might not have only one primary type. So first off, a very common one, but truly I'd say these are all common, but I hear a lot with my clients, that procrastination type of being that perfectionist. So if you align with being a perfectionist, go ahead and type that into the chat box, a yes, or the name of what aligns with you. But if you're someone who perhaps puts off completing a task because you're so focused on every little detail having to be just right, then that might describe your sort of style there. The next one is the dreamer. So if you're someone who maybe you align with being more of a creative type, you're all about setting that vision, you've got that big idea, but when it comes to actual execution, taking action, that's where you find yourself falling short, then dreamer is your type. Okay, I see some blends here. This is great, as well as some solos. So the next one is the avoider. So this is where, if you've got that worry, that fear around being judged, and that influences your ability to handle a task because you just don't feel confident that you can execute on it, then you may avoid the big things and really stay with other areas that are in your comfort zone or just really sort of reactionary things. So that's the avoider. Couple more. And I see here some of you saying too, it kind of depends on what the thing is, perhaps, that you're procrastinating on. So absolutely, that's a good point. It might come up at different times. So the crisis maker is if you're someone, you might think that you do your best work when you wait until the last minute. But for most of us, just having that additional time for rework, for updates, is beneficial and is something that we cut ourselves short on. Or otherwise, you might just like sort of the pressure around deadlines and waiting till the very last minute. But we know that the challenge, or where we know it's a challenge for us, is if we're feeling really stressed because of the timing, because of putting it off. And then there's the big busy procrastinator, number 5. So if you find that you've got so many tasks that you have trouble prioritizing, you find yourself avoiding certain tasks that you don't want to work on, or you're postponing decisions on big things and focusing on the things that don't matter, you're someone that maybe really likes to check off things off that to-do list, even if maybe it's not the right things, then busy procrastinator. All right, so definitely see a lot of variety then. We've all got our different flavors of procrastination, and recognizing that is so key, because we do have some unique strategies depending on your type, depending on that situation, that we'll go through here. And then we're going to talk about some strategies that universally can help move forward from those procrastination habits. So let's start getting to those strategies. So now we've got our list again, our different types, and here we'll talk through some of those unique strategies that you can take depending on which procrastination type or situation that you're in. And as we talk through these areas, I'd love to continue to keep that great engagement going within the chat. Let's learn from one another. And if there are strategies you have found that work for you, regardless of if they're on this list or not, I'd love to have you pop that into the chat box. Let's learn from one another here. Or if there are ones that you have not implemented yet, then let's use this chat box as a commitment to yourself around typing in a strategy that you will be trying out in the future. So starting with the perfectionist. Okay, if you're somebody who, again, it has to be perfect, so you drag things out, you take a really long time, one of the simple steps of assigning an artificial deadline can be really helpful. Or redefining your standards of what success looks like. Instead of perfect, well, what is the outcome or purpose behind the action that you're looking to take, and staying grounded to that. You'll see, by the way, that there are interconnections between the strategies in each of these areas as well. So it's not a one size fit all, but this is meant to get those wheels turning for you. So with the dreamer, creating these bite-sized goals is key. That's really to help get grounded in the specifics, setting deadlines, things that are achievable, so that way you can track your progress. Progress is what is so motivating for us. So again, we want to create more of that motivation, less procrastination. Those are some keys. Now, if you're the avoider type, as painful it may be to start, focusing on what feels like that heaviest, worst sort of task first, getting it out of the way can be key. And that can build a sense of achievement, build that confidence for yourself. And one of the ways to do that and to be less reactionary would be not checking your email first. If you're somebody who gets sucked into that piece, and that's actually a strategy for the busy procrastinator as well. Focus on what your main goal is first, let the rest follow. Now with the crisis maker, this is where we want to cut tasks down into smaller chunks. So you can use a method like the Pomodoro technique. I'm curious who here has either heard of or used the Pomodoro technique before. That's where you are creating those time intervals for really dedicated, focused work. And then you're taking those breaks so that way you can mentally recharge before moving on to your next chunk of time, that interval. There are different timers to do that. All right, so we've got a variety of responses related to Pomodoro. So that could be something, if you haven't tried it, if focus has been a challenge, then suggest trying it for you. But as you'll see, it's not for everyone. With any coaching goal, it's all about trial and error over perfection. So that way we ultimately get closer to alignment to what sort of strategies and next steps are going to resonate with you uniquely to move forward. So Pomodoro is great for some, others not so brilliant. Okay, so now we've got the busy procrastinator, last but not least. So the key here to think about is how, for example, urgent doesn't always mean important. So if you get clear first on what is important to you, the purpose behind your task, that's going to help you to prioritize accordingly. So learn to identify what really matters to help guide your next steps and build that motivation in the area that it needs to be in. So those are some key strategies. If there are, again, any that aren't on this list that you have found helpful in certain situations, feel free to plop that into the chat box too. And we'll see if we can grow our list of things that we can all try moving forward. Okay, so we've talked about those unique strategies and habits. It's another topic that I so love to explore. It's definitely an area that I go back to a lot with my coaching clients, because our habits are either things that don't serve us in the direction of our goals, they contribute to that procrastination and stress, or they serve us in moving forward. So the more that we can explore refining our habits to move forward, then that can be another strategy to combat that procrastination. So let's start digging in a bit further here. So our bad habits, they don't have to define us. Our habits are a blend of the environment around us. We know we can't always change that. Our psychology, so absolutely with mindset, with motivation, we explore through coaching how we can shift the needle there. And then there's our biology as well. So there's just going to be certain things about us that we can't change. Again, let's focus on what we can to shift those habits. And so there are going to be 5 different strategies that I'm excited to share with you here to build those better habits that can help you to stop procrastinating and to start taking action. So with that, I've got a question at the bottom here too. If you haven't already typed it earlier, love to hear what is one procrastination habit that you would like to change. So if there's a particular area that you feel like you're slacking on, if there's a way that you procrastinate on a certain task, something that you do frequently, we all have those different procrastination habits. Go ahead and put that into the chat and keep that in mind as we start to explore ways that you can shift certain habits. A habit, for example, that's leading to procrastination might be if it's related to a health goal and you know that you have really been putting off working out. And let's say that it's that morning workout is something that you often find that, oh, I'll do it later. You wake up in the morning, alarm goes off, and you snooze instead of actually going for that run. And then you procrastinate on it. I'll do it later. You start doing work. You say, oh, maybe at lunch. And then lunchtime comes around. Actually, I'm going to eat food and do something else instead. And delay, that would be an example of a procrastination habit where you're like, oh, this is something I consistently do, but I want to change. Keep one of those things in mind for yourself as we talk through these next 5 strategies. So strategy 1 And the first 4 of these, by the way, for any of you who have read Atomic Habits by James Clear, definitely recommend as a great resource for building habits to serve you with your next steps. First 4 are what we're taking away from him here. So making your habit obvious or not obvious. So if there is something that you want to do, and I'll focus in on some examples on the health side, then we want to have it be front and center for you. So let's say that you have a goal in mind around healthier eating. And if healthier meat eating for you means less sugar, more fruits and vegetables, for example, then to make it obvious, we don't want you to hide those fruits and vegetables in your fridge. This is all about displaying them front and center. Maybe they're in a bowl in your kitchen, somewhere that you're frequently seeing it. So that would be a way to make it obvious. Similarly, something, if it's causing you to procrastinate, like it's your phone is a distraction that's stopping you from moving forward with work, for example, well, then to make it not obvious would mean we put it away, we shift it away from the environment. So you have to actually work harder to get it. Another area would be, yes, that's physical or non-physical anchors to keep it top of mind. So we talk about the fruit, that's physically in your environment. Non-physical can be something like a picture on your phone to keep you motivated with the next step. It could be a affirmation or reminder to yourself that you tell yourself, or it could be something that you write down on a Post-it, so it's front and center. But again, put in front of you what is going to be helpful for you. Move away from, make it less obvious, the things that you want to avoid. And so I'd love for you all to think about, and feel free to put that in the chat, one way that you will remind yourself of a next step, some way that you will make a habit that's going to help you combat that procrastination, how to make something more obvious, and feel free to put that into the chat. Okay, so next, strategy 2 is about making this habit appealing or unappealing, depending on if it's something you're avoiding or something you're working towards. So we want to make a new habit attractive. Going back to the fruit and veggie example, like let's start with one of those that you like the most, so you're actually going to want to eat it when you see it. If you hate peas, then don't have that be the first thing that you put on your kitchen counter because it's obvious, but it's unappealing, then it's less likely for you to be moving forward. So this is the idea of really creating rewards, having more incentives to move forward. And so the reward can be the object or thing or action itself, or it could be you actually identifying a reward for yourself. So if you're procrastinating on something, you don't really want to do it, you try and make it as attractive as possible. Well, also it could be something like a way that you're going to celebrate or reward yourself afterwards. So we want to create as much hype for you as possible, or disincentives if, again, it's something that you're trying to cut out. So as you think about this sort of idea, I'd love for you to at least reflect on, and feel free to also put into that chat, how you will reward yourself moving forward. Again, let's level up your habits here to combat that procrastination. And I did have a question around receiving a copy of the presentation, and Jill will be sending her recap to all attendees with a replay of the webinar. So rest assured, you'll definitely have this, and I do encourage you to go back and see with different areas what resonates and what you can try moving forward. Okay, strategy number 3 of 5, make it easy or make it hard. So we want to really minimize friction or distractions, anything that's stopping you from moving forward. So we know mindset is tough. So environmentally then, how can we make a next step even easier to follow through with? So going back to that fruit and vegetable example, again, having it front and center, that is a way that we reduce friction of actually having to take another next step of thinking about it to then open the fridge. Or, I mean, if we take this example further, maybe you might not want to focus on fruits that require a lot of prep work to actually eat if that's a goal. Going for something super easy is a way to minimize that friction and ensure that you're going to follow through more so. But for things that you don't want, so distraction phone, I hear about that as a procrastination tool. Then for those, you want to make more of a barrier there. So a barrier being removing it from your environment. Perhaps there are certain rules that you put in place. So again, the more barriers that we can create, the less willpower that we have to tap into. In the same way that if you're working, and this has made some of the blur between work and home challenging with this post-COVID world. If you're doing your work while you're sitting on your bed, or if you are on your couch facing your TV, well, then that distraction is just so easy to take a nice nap or to watch something instead. And so again, creating those barriers, make it hard when it's not serving you, make it easier when it is. Okay, so I'd love for you all to think about then distractions that you're going to focus on making tougher for you moving forward. So as you reflect on that, we'll go through a couple more examples, and then we'll start to bring it all together before our Q&A for about the last 10 minutes. So strategy number 4 is all about making it enjoyable or unenjoyable. So this is where any new habit, to break the old procrastination one, we want it to be a positive habit loop that you create. So there's going to be some sort of a cue, something that happens in the environment. It's going to trigger you to take your action, whether that be something that doesn't serve you, like the procrastination, or the desired action. And so this goes back to that idea of making it enjoyable. If we can create some sort of a reward, then awesome. That's going to help you to build that desirable habit. And in the same way, if you can make habits of procrastination or other things unenjoyable, then it's going to be that much easier to shift to the habit that's going to serve you. So last but not least, number 5 is using your physiology. This is probably my favorite strategy to go back to, whether it be to manage your stress, to procrastinate less, or really like any time that you are feeling stuck, because motivation, mindset, those things absolutely influence our procrastination and just really any other aspect of life. And so we've talked strategies here, so that way, again, we can tap into the methods and strategies to shift gears, but also rather than just kind of thinking yourself into being motivated, being less stressed, starting first from your physiology can be a great start. So it's this idea that emotion comes from motion, that mind and body are interconnected. And so if you've heard of before this idea of being in a peak state, feel free to type a yes or a no in the chat box now. That's connecting with the time that you really felt your best. For me, I would say peak state would be completing my black belt test with Taekwondo. And then just that level of accomplishment, just remembering how I was standing tall, kind of breathing hard, but it was like that sort of feeling after you've had a really awesome workout versus the I'm going to die, this feels like crap workout. So just really connecting with that, having a big smile on my face, because I realized here's something that the culmination of almost 20 years, I did it. That felt awesome. That's a sort of peak state. And through coaching, one of the things I encourage for my clients is really connecting with a peak state anytime that you are feeling stressed or stuck. So that way we can shift how we are feeling by starting first with moving our body in a way that gets us into that peak state. Or you may have also heard of power posing. Amy Cuddy does a TED talk on this. It's that idea of building that confidence through a strong sort of pose that you can define for yourself. So I encourage you all as a next step to think about a peak state and to really tap into that. Or other ways can involve when you're feeling stuck, feeling more stressed at work, simply having a drink of water or getting up and doing a quick lap around your home or outside if possible. Those are all strategies, or doing a few stretches. Those are all ways to use our physiology to also shift how we are feeling, influence that mindset, that motivation to take action where we are otherwise feeling stuck. A great example here of a great yoga session and how you feel after. That balance, absolutely. Great peak state. Thank you. Okay, so in our next few minutes here, we're going to close before Q&A, just like we would do in a typical sort of coaching session. With my clients, we explore a topic where they're getting stuck. For us all today, it was around procrastination. And again, that learning is great, but it's all about translating it to what action looks like for you. So I encourage you all to think about what you're going to commit to today based on today's session. So what is one step that you will take to reduce procrastination in your life? We've shared strategies specific to your procrastination type, but we've also shared these strategies related to building those habits overall that will support less procrastination, more action. So I'd love for you to reflect on a step you'll take and by when. And also to think about who will hold you accountable. Many of my clients like the structure of coaching because they know I'm going to be checking in on our items each session. That's accountability in itself, having those sessions scheduled, making that sort of commitment, having someone in your corner. So for you, what does that accountability look like, whether that be for yourself or tapping into your network of friends and family? And I'll share how I can support you each step of that way. For any of you who have questions around coaching and what that could look like, we can explore some of that in our Q&A. And also we have, as part of our consult process, Jill will be sharing a consult link later on where you can have a conversation with one of our relationship specialists who can really hear uniquely from you what your goals you're looking to achieve and help you to understand how coaching may fit into that if that might be of interest. So one of these questions, would love for you to throw that into the chat box. Again, we've got a great group of like-minded people here, meaning we are all focused on that habit change, on stopping that procrastination. So what a great sort of accountability to even just put it out there and see how that influences your motivation. And love it. I see some tips coming through, and I also see some of those thoughts around commitments. So let's keep that going. Now, if you've attended one of my webinars before, then I would ask you to hold off on the chat. But this picture I love sharing because, again, when I think about martial arts being something that was something I so enjoyed as a kid, I thought about it off and on forever, created so many just excuses and fears around actually taking it to the next level. And then here, this picture about a little over a year ago was the international instructor team for my school at our headquarters in Boston for an instructor training. And when I took that first step of signing up again for Taekwondo, I knew that I wanted to work towards black belt, and I never would have imagined that it would have meant next level beyond that, or would have meant being part of this awesome instructor team, or that it would have meant incorporating these principles into my coaching and vice versa. So I love this picture. And with that, we can play a little Where's Waldo, and let me know if you can find me in this picture. I think there's about 70 something people here, and you get big kudos if you can see where I am in that picture. So take a guess. And you can think about it. I'll keep that up for about another minute here. And I'll share. Ooh, Jackie has got it. Amanda is close. So back row to the left, yes. I don't know if you can see this little green dot, but I'm the second one here. So there you go. I love my headbands. I'm definitely shorter. So that is me in the back. Good spot. All right. So before we go to Q&A, if you'd love to get in touch, any other questions, again, stick around for the next 10 minutes. Happy to address what I can. Jill is also going to be including a consult scheduling link. So again, if coaching seems of interest to you, if you liked some of the frameworks, the strategies we talked about today in the context of how that fits into coaching sessions, then would love for you to learn more by meeting with a relationship specialist to hear again more about your unique flavor of whether it be procrastination or the goals you're looking to achieve. And that's one of the great things about the ALB community is then the team can help to determine that best coaching fit. And again, this area, something that I so love. So if additional support could be helpful for you, then I look forward to exploring more together. And we have this special right now, new year, fresh start. You know, one of those strategies to move forward with anything is this idea of commitment. That's why we identify those commitments end of session each time. So if for you, you know that, hey, I have big goals, I want to go after them. If you can visualize coaching support being a fit for you, then through the end of this month, we're offering 15% off an entire year of coaching with an annual membership. So that's something you can discuss with relationship specialist if you have questions there. And otherwise, it's been such a pleasure. And I'm happy to use this remaining time now to take some Q&A. If you go ahead and put that in the chat box, and we'll go from there. Okay.
All right, a few questions. Are you able to read these, Sarah?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I was gonna read through them, but if you wanna.
Oh, if you have some ready though, I need to scroll back if you want to.
So there's a question about combining activities. Hang on. So what's an example of combining activities?
Yeah, so combining activities, I like to call that, as James Clear mentions, I believe, this idea of habit stacking. So if you're combining activities to support moving forward, let's say, for example, for my health clients, if you want to have more of a fitness routine in service of a goal, and you find that's the thing that you've really been procrastinating on, well, rather than creating this brand new habit around that exercise, if we can stack it on top of an activity that you are already doing, that's one way to minimize the friction with following through. So if part of your morning, you already have a routine where, say, you get up, you drink your coffee, you do some affirmations or journaling, and then you typically like shower and start the work day. Well, habit stacking could be integrating that into your current routine. So perhaps after the reading, well, that's where your new habit that you layer on is, maybe that's where you do some stretching or your exercise, as opposed to creating something outside of the ecosystem of what you already do. So I hope that answers the question around the activities. And if you meant something different with the combining, just let me know, and happy to address from another level as well. Okay, I see a recent question around, is a vision board an anchor? And Absolutely, Joanna. Yes, it is an example of that. So being able to connect with our goals to make it more real, absolutely having that visual, that daily reminder can be key. So whether it be a vision board or affirmations that you're writing down or that you've created, the power is in going back to those things. So you don't want to forget about the great vision that you've set or about the affirmation or mantras that you've created. That's where having it front and center, having that board somewhere where you can see regularly, having the post-it notes for the affirmations, or even a blend of those things, it doesn't have to just be one thing, can really help lock it in. So that's great. Let's see. I'm sure there are questions embedded here. And Jill, we have a question too around how much is the yearly membership with the discount? I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head. Do you happen to have that handy? I know
Yeah,
it's
so I actually just chatted Luana directly about it just to make sure that she got it. So it depends on the frequency, on how often you want to meet with your coach, either 2 times a month or 4 times a month. But the overall discount across the board comes out to about 700 off. But if you have any other specific questions about what that would look like for you, obviously, of course, reach out to us or reply to that email, and we can help figure out numbers for you as well.
awesome. Thanks, Jill. And okay, I'm trying to make my chat box bigger. I feel like I might be missing some questions.
I took a look. I didn't see, there's lots of engagement, which is awesome. Lots of comments. I think the last one was just about the vision board. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we've got a few more minutes in case any lingering questions pop up. But otherwise, I really, my wish for all of you is that you take those commitments to the next level and put into practice at least one thing that we've covered today. Let's not let those old procrastination habits define you and instead move towards those goals that you want to achieve, the person that you want to be. It all starts with that initial first small step. Doesn't have to be all of the things, but at least just one of the things, which is why we covered off on so many examples. So that way, any one of those that aligns more, resonates with you, that's your starting point to move forward. All right. Well, thank you all as well for joining. And again, if any questions come up later on, feel free to schedule a consult conversation if you're learning more, if there's that interest about how coaching can fit in. And otherwise, really enjoyed the time together.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah. And thank you all so much for joining and engaging. We know that with these webinars, time goes by fast, but it's always about the more that you put into it is the more that you get out of it. So we really appreciate everyone being engaged and showing up. And thank you all so much. As Sarah said, if you have any lingering questions, feel free to reply to that email that I will be sending out tomorrow with the recording. For the record, this is recorded and we will be sending it out. So thank you all so much. And we hope to see you again for another event soon.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.